The gospel reading today is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 3 through 12. You may start to be getting kind of familiar with this because I will use this every week during this sermon series. You know these verses as the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. This is the word of the Lord. You may be seated. Instead of saying blessed, we could say what? Happy. Happy. Blessed means happy. So if you reread all of this, we could say, happy are the poor in spirit, happy are those who mourn, and some of that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? And those are the kinds of things we've been trying to unpack in this sermon series. So two friends met in the street. One looked sad and almost on the verge of tears. The other man said, "Hey, my friend, how come you look like the world has caved in?" And the sad fellow said, "Well, let me tell you. 3 weeks ago, an uncle died and left me $50,000. The other guy said, "Well, that's not bad at all." And he said, hold on, I'm just getting started. 2 weeks ago, an uncle died and left me $50,000. An uncle died and left me $95,000 tax-free to boot. Well, that's great. I'd like that a lot. And last week, my grandfather passed away, and I inherited almost $1 million. So why are you so glum? This week, nothing. Have you ever known anyone who is never satisfied? Our topic this morning is the satisfaction secret. There's people who will fall into a hole and find $1 million gold nugget at the bottom. And instead of celebrating their good fortune, they'll start complaining, Why is that hole there anyway? Why weren't there any warning signs about that hole? Shouldn't somebody have put up barricades for that hole? What if there had been water in that hole? I could have drowned. It's kind of an odd way to approach life, at least in my mind, and yet we all have days that are a little bit like that. So Matthew 5:6, a little different wording than the way I read it the first time, says this: Happy are those who are hungry and thirsty for true goodness, for they will be fully satisfied. Listen again. Happy are those who are hungry and thirsty for true goodness, for they will be fully satisfied. In America, we don't have a good sense about hunger and thirst, at least not most of us. Hunger might be compared to what, like a Big Mac attack, something like that, or the Snickers hungry ads, or some of the things that you see that are trying to entice you to buy, right? Food. And we consider ourselves hungry. Thirst is more like, Miller time? Would that, or obey your thirst, I think that was a Sprite advertisement. Or maybe one of the athlete drinks, full of potassium and stuff. That's what we think of as thirst. Mother Teresa and Gandhi in India, they both really knew what physical hunger was, because they experienced it in other people and they experienced it themselves. They understood what true hunger was. In the U.S., and I'm talking physical hunger there, in the U.S., we understand what spiritual hunger is. Yeah. Oftentimes, the people who are physically hungry, they are spiritually connected. Because when you're going through hard times, you tend to find God. You look for Him a little bit harder, don't you? Yeah. But when we are full, we have this concept of needing to be full. When we are full, we have less of a need for God. And that leaves us spiritually hungry. Now, spiritual hunger is often mistaken for some other things in our life. Things like, my life is empty. We think our lives are empty. It could really be spiritual hunger. We say things like, I'm bored. Spiritual hunger. We say things like, I'm restless. Spiritual hunger. Sometimes we say, something is missing in my life. Or there must be more to life than this. You've probably said it yourself on some occasions, and you've certainly heard other people say it. That indicates a spiritual hunger. Even when things are good, sometimes we have this gnawing feeling that something bad is going to happen. Something's going to destroy it. Right? That this good can't possibly last. The other shoe will fall. And that could indicate a spiritual hunger. So you have notes here. I know some of you are note takers and some of you are willing to take notes. So we'll fill in the blanks here as we go along. And we're about to get on to your notes. Why are so many so unsatisfied? Well, you don't find lasting satisfaction in pleasure. You don't find lasting satisfaction in pleasure. It's that old thing where if something in the future happens, something that I'm just counting on, when that happens, I'm going to be truly satisfied in life, Yeah. During the winter, we say when summer comes, right? When that snow's finally gone, I can finally get out in my garden, then I'll be satisfied. Or I've got a cruise coming up. I'm going to go on this cruise and then I'll be satisfied. Or if I just could make a little more money, then I'd be satisfied. If I could get married or have a baby, then maybe I could be satisfied. This is Ecclesiastes 1:8. It says, no matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are never content. Have you ever heard this ads that always end with the same phrase? Many ads end with this phrase. It's satisfaction guaranteed. Have you heard that? And so you rush out and spend your money because satisfaction is guaranteed. And the next thing you know, it's sitting in a dusty closet or out on the table for your garage sale or in the back of your car to go to the cubby, right? Does it really bring satisfaction? Probably not. Probably not. There's Hebrews 11:25 says, the pleasures of sin last a short time. The other thing that we think is that if maybe we're just a little naughty, that'll bring some excitement into our lives. We need that excitement in order to be satisfied. Does it really satisfy? No, because there's always consequences, aren't there? And the consequences never seem to make it worth it in the long run. The second one is you don't find lasting satisfaction in performance. Workaholics sometimes figure this out, right? They know that their ambition, that they're going to succeed, that they're going to have more sales than the guy at the desk next to them, or they're going to be promoted to that big job, or whatever it is they're looking for. That performance will somehow be truly satisfying. Ecclesiastes 2:23 says, what does a man get for all his hard work? Days full of sorrow and grief and restless nights. I'll tell you a myth. It's that success produces satisfaction. And that, folks, is false. Not true. There was this automobile dealership when I lived in Indiana. They were an Indianapolis-based automobile dealership, huge company, and middle-aged to young couple kind of owned this, and they did advertisements on TV. And the man was very professional, and he would hawk a few cars, showing them to you and telling you about them. And then the ad would end with his perky wife, she was really cute. She would say, "Bird is the word." That would be the end of the advertisement. Bird is the word. And their last name was Bird, and the dealership was, the Bird car dealership there in Indianapolis. And I thought, what a wonderful couple. I'm so glad they're successful. They're so full of energy and big smiles on their face. And they were just ads that I enjoyed. One day I picked up the newspaper, and the man had hung himself in his office at the dealership. It was incomprehensible. It didn't fit anything, the image that I had of this couple from their advertisements. And I thought, wow, he must have had terrible financial trouble, or, nobody saw it coming. Nobody understood. I thought, well, that's the end of that dealership, because of all of their problems. And then about 6 months later, there was an ad on the TV. It was his 18-year-old son hawking a few cars. And then at the end of the ad, his mom came on and said, "Bird is the word." Now, if they had the money to continue to operate this, what could have been in the mind of this man who seemed to have everything but felt such despair that he took his own life? There is no satisfaction in success. No, that isn't how it works. Ecclesiastes 2:21, you work for something with all your skill, and then you have to leave it all to someone who hasn't had to work for it. The third one is you don't find lasting satisfaction in possessions. You don't find lasting satisfaction in possessions. Have you ever heard of retail therapy? Yeah. Some of you may have experienced that. I might have been guilty once or twice myself. I used to know this fellow that every time he was depressed, he would go out and buy a new TV. He had 2 TVs in every room, you know. That was somehow how he was coping with life. He'd go buy another television every time he was depressed. Ecclesiastes 5:10, he who loves money will never have enough. It is foolishness to believe wealth brings happiness. It is foolishness to believe that wealth brings happiness. The secret of satisfaction. Psalm 37:4, seek your happiness in the Lord, and He will give you your heart's desire. I may have talked about this a little bit before, but it's such an awakening to me. One of the things I get to do as a pastor is counsel couples who want to be married. And I've done many, many, many weddings over the last several decades. Every now and then you run into a couple. You know, one of the things I always would go over with the couple is, what does their life look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? How do they see their relationship developing? What are their goals? What do they really want out of life? And once in a while, they get this kind of deer in the headlight look, when you ask those questions, and somebody will finally say, well, we just want to be happy. Just want to be happy. I think, oh my goodness, this couple is in serious trouble. They have no clue what tomorrow looks like. They have no plan for the future. And they think happiness is just going to come from being together, Here's a sad truth. If happiness is your goal, you're probably not going to find it. You know that? If happiness is your goal, you're probably not going to find it. If God is your goal, you'll probably find happiness. Way different goal, isn't it? Search for God. Feel that hunger and that thirst, and you will find satisfaction. Number 2, how to experience satisfaction in life. The first one is recognize my real hunger. Recognize my real hunger. What is really missing in my life? Have you ever, these kids get these block sets, and there's a board with different shaped holes in it, right? And all the blocks have a different shape, and they'll only go into the correct hole. Every single one of us has a God-shaped hole. And you wouldn't believe the kinds of things we try to stuff into that hole that don't fit. We try to fill that hole with pizza, right? Or food of any kind, or you name it, activities, relationships. There are so many things that we try to stuff in that hole to make us satisfied, and there's only one thing that fits, and that's God Himself. Because it's a God-shaped hole. It's the only thing that's going to satisfy us. Deuteronomy 8:3, God humbled you by letting you go hungry and then feeding you with manna. He did this to help you realize that real life comes by obeying every command of God. God let them get hungry, allowed it so that they would recognize their need for Him. One of our biggest failings, both for individuals, for people, even for the church sometimes, certainly for society, is thinking that we don't need God. Most of us have kids that were raised in the church, but do they come? No. They think they don't need God. In fact, they think that God would somehow make their life worse, you know. I had a friend that said, "Oh, I don't go to church, it's just a fashion show." Yeah. Didn't come to church because she didn't feel like she had the right clothes to wear. Can you imagine? Other people don't come to church. All they want is my money. You know, I don't go to church because all they want is my money. They think that attending church, that pursuing God is going to somehow be hard on them. They don't understand that it's the only way to satisfaction, the only way to happiness. Happy are those who are hungry, because God is about to do something amazing in your life. If you're feeling a hunger and thirst for Christ, God is about to do something amazing in your life. You see, hunger is a motivation, a hunger for God. We seek God to experience real satisfaction. The next one is stop eating junk food. Stop eating junk food. Isaiah 55:2. Why spend your money on what is not bread and your labor on what does not satisfy? Good question, huh? You know, there's this plant in Australia. It's an amazing plant. It's the spores of a clover fern of some kind. There's probably a name. I don't know what the name is. But the amazing thing is, if you grind up these spores, it makes the most beautiful flour you have ever seen. And I'm talking about the kind you cook with, right? Flour. You grind it into this amazing flour. Now, when you use this flour, you can make a loaf of bread that is perfect. It is wonderful. It looks like the most amazing bread in the entire world when you bake with this flour. Now, here's the thing about this bread. This bread has no protein in it. None. It has no carbohydrates in it. None. It has no vitamins in it. Not a one. It has absolutely nothing essential for life in this loaf of bread. You can literally eat this bread every day, fill your belly full, and die because you're not getting any of the nutrients that you need to sustain your life. Isn't that incredible? It's incredible to me to think about that and how it relates to our spiritual lives. We try to be full. I mentioned this earlier. We try to be full. And it seems to be an important goal to us to fill our lives with activities, to fill our bellies with food. But I got to tell you something, it's not the same as being satisfied. We can fill our lives with spiritual junk food, or we can fill our lives with the bread of life. There's something about hanging around hungry people, and that is you get hungry. When you hang around with people that are truly trying to grow in their faith, that are truly trying to find God, you'll want that as well. It's a good thing for us all to be here together. And the last one is start looking to Christ for satisfaction. There is nothing else that will work. There's nothing else that has worked in our lives. Jesus said, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. You can't find satisfaction within. Have you ever heard this thing? It's a myth that says you have everything already in you to be happy. You have everything already in you to be successful. You have everything you need within you to carry on your life, your relationship, your job, your goals, whatever it is. That's a lie, folks. It's not the truth. There's only one way that that can be true, and that is if Christ resides within you. Then you have everything in you. We want to develop people. We want to tell them the potential they have. But the truth is that Christ made us to be dependent on Him. And that's not a message most of us want to hear, but it's an absolute fact. Jesus said, "Whoever drinks water will get thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give will never be thirsty again. It will become in him a spring of living water." So I circled the verbs in these two passages. And basically, it means you must take action. When you're physically hungry, you take action. What do? You eat, right? You eat. When you're spiritually hungry, you need to take action as well. Whoever comes, I circled comes, to me. You need to come to Christ. Whoever believes in me, you need to believe in Christ. Whoever drinks, you need to drink or receive Christ. And folks, this is urgent. There's no credit for pew time. There's only credit for believing and receiving. Amen.